Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi. Kind of got tied up late this afternoon and evening, so I wasn't able to live stream earlier. So I figured I'd do a live stream tonight, and we're going to look at a few different things. Just wait for you to jump on and see how many of you we're going to get tonight. I think everybody has fatigue over this with these 4 major hurricanes that we've had in the last month. I know I'm wiped out and burned out a bit. And after going over Puerto Rico last night with the 150-mile-an-hour winds, just seemed like it was almost like the day after a snowstorm. It just is one of those times where I just kind of have to sit back and, take a deep breath and realize that we got to keep going because there's more to go with this. In the meantime, Kovu, as always, has decided to join us tonight, so let's see how long he stays around. So see, there's 20 of you on, which is great. So we'll get started. What I put up right now is the water vapor imagery loop of Maria, because we are seeing a couple of things going on. First off, the eye moved off Puerto Rico late this afternoon and emerged over the coastal waters, and pressure when it went in was at 917 millibars. When it came out, it was at 961 millibars, which was quite the weakening. Even though it's a small island, it is mountainous and it does disrupt the circulation, and it did a very good job at that. It also disrupts the core, and the core went right over the island. So, as the Hurricane Center pointed out in their discussion tonight, it usually takes a good 24 hours for all of that to just put itself back together. And the eye started appearing rather quickly as soon as it went offshore. But if you notice, the eye is kind of ragged. And what you can see on the water vapor imagery is actually one of these eye wall replacement cycles getting underway. If you look very closely, you can see there's almost an eye within an eye. There's a new eye wall that's starting to form. That you see that bright white arc there? That is the new eye that's beginning to form as the old eye deteriorates. So you're actually seeing one of these eye wall replacement cycles get underway. Still, the storm has a pretty good presentation on the satellite. It's got that kind of symmetric look to it, and I think once it pulls a little bit further to the north and gets away from the terrain of the Dominican Republic, part of the circulation is on that. Part of the circulation is still on over Puerto Rico. I think once it gets north of 20 north and gets up in this area and closer to Turks and Caicos, you might see this strengthen just a bit. We may eventually wind up, I think we're going to go back to a Category 3, maybe an outside chance it could get on the high end of a 3 or maybe a little bit more than that, but there are impediments along the way, and I'm going to show you those. In the meantime, in the upper corner is another loop of the other Tropical Storm Jose. And we'll take a look at the water vapor imagery of this one. And you'll notice, first of all, the difference between the structure of Jose versus Maria. It's holding its own, and you can see that there's a circulation here, but obviously, it's nothing like what Maria looks like. And even though there seems to be a core of convection near the center, there's also quite a bit of dry air that's got it in here. And there's dry air out to the west of it also. It's the center on the water vapor is roughly at... How did this happen? Hang on a second. I don't know how I did this. Actually, they flipped the picture on me. God, let me see if I can flip it back. That's weird. So we're looking at it upside down. Shows you how burned out and tired I am. I just noticed that now. So let's see if I can rotate this again. You see how tired I get? Let's try... Nope, that didn't work. All right, you know what? Why don't we do this? I'm going to start from scratch again. So hang on. I don't know why it did that, but I'm going to put that on one more time. And we'll see if it works this time. If you're new to this channel, you'll find out that I do make mistakes. Mainly because my brain gets fried after a while. Okay, so that's Maria. I don't know how did this happen? Well, you can see Maria on the visible. Let me try this again. Okay, that's why. Wrong loop. Correct loop. Got it. Okay. Oh, folks, like I said, it's a long, long night. And that's the Maria loop. Hasn't loaded yet. There's your water vapor. Okay, so now it's right side up. I'm sorry about that. Boy, you guys must think I'm a fool. But here we go. Let me get that, bring that back up for you. So you can see it here. There's the dry air, and you see the center. You know, there's some convection around it, but it's nothing like what Maria looks. And there's also a lot of clouds and moisture that are getting thrown back westward here toward New York City and northern New Jersey and the Hudson Valley. The rain that we have had is confined to bands that are offshore, and they're actually pulling back westward toward Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, southeastern Massachusetts, where they're getting, occasionally getting tropical storm force winds there. They had some higher winds earlier. I haven't checked the latest winds on this, but you get the idea. At least you get to see with Maria that concentric eye and the eye wall replacement cycle actually in the process of it. Sometimes it's not easy to see on the visible picture, and certainly you've got the IR picture at this moment, and I'll bring that up to the top for you so you can take a look at this. And there's that eye. It looks very ragged, but it is trying, and the wall is going to eventually just enclose it all the way around. So once that eye wall replacement cycle is done, you're going to get to see. I think you're going to see this strengthen a bit, but it may not be for a while. Hey, there's everybody. Let me just say hi. Okay, so Corey Bodziak, Alex 1, Scott Olson, Mark Drums, Alex 1. Alex, this storm is in the top 10 of lowest pressures in the Atlantic Basin going back to the 1800s. So this storm ranks pretty high. I mean, it almost went in. It was a Category 5 yesterday as it approached Puerto Rico, and then it had one of those eye wall replacement cycles that occurred right after it passed St. Croix, and it wound up weakening the wind field just a little bit, so it went in as a strong Category 4. But 150 mile an hour winds across the island was unbelievable. So there's Maria. Again, once we get a little bit further to the north, I think once we get to about 21 or 22 north, I think there's room for some strengthening. But I doubt I really would be shocked to see this get much beyond a Category 3. Maybe it can. There's some time, but there are, as I said, there are some impediments to this going forward. And I'm going to bring up the GFS. Actually, I'm not even going to bring the GFS up. I'm going to bring up one of the hurricane models because there's a part of it that is useful. And we'll move to the top. And there you have it. Okay, so let's interact. And we're going to look at one of the hurricane models. Let it load. And we're going to look at the HWRF, and we're going to look at it for Jose. And what I want to show you first is Jose's forecast track on this model. And I think I got the latest one. Let's make sure we got the latest one. And here we go. So here's what the HWRF does with this. And you're going to see the geography move. It actually holds the storm the geography moves on this map. And you can see Maria coming into the picture. Notice what happens to Jose. It gets completely absorbed over the next several days. Move that down so you can see the date. So, we're into Saturday. And I'm wondering, by the way, while this low is still out there, whether, how far west the rain is going to get. Some of the models actually bring some rain back to the immediate coast. But Maria completely absorbs this as it moves northward. Now, we only go out on this to 126 hours. And you can see where it is. It's almost it's a track. It's a little bit slightly further to the east than Jose just took. But the map I want to show you is the sea surface temperatures, because there's a problem with the sea surface temperatures. Notice that the green area here that's sitting east of North Carolina and extends down almost to the latitude of northernmost Florida and sitting out near 70 West, there's a big pocket of cold water. The water temperatures here, you need to have them above 20. You need at least 26 Celsius, 26, 27 Celsius to sustain tropical storm development. And once you start getting water temperatures under 26, 25 Celsius, or about 78, 79 degrees Fahrenheit, it usually see these storms weaken a bit. Notice this little streak of red that comes out, of dark red, and then turns eastward. That's the Gulf Stream. But this cold patch of water is because of the upwelling that was caused by Jose. And this is the forecast, by the way, days from now. This is for early next week. This is for next Monday. You have this cold water that's evident here from the upwelling. And if we go back, and I'll loop it, we can show you. You can see how this area of cold water grows over time. Again, all because of the upwelling that is due to Jose. And then you get Maria into the picture, and it kind of upwells it even more. By the way, notice also around Florida and in the Bahamas, you've got water temperatures up here close to 90 degrees. So the Florida Straits, Irma went through there and did absolutely nothing to cool down that. Well, that by now enough time has passed. We actually did have some cooling when it went by, but that's all recovered. And water temperatures throughout much of the Gulf of Mexico that we can see here, the northeastern part of the Gulf of Mexico, the northeastern quarter of it, water temperatures are in the upper 80s. Water temperatures in parts of the Florida Straits near 90 in some places, and out to the Bahamas. Now, if you ever could if Maria ever got into this water, there would be a problem. It is going to straddle the edge of this right in here, so this is where it may have a shot to intensify, maybe back to a Category 4, but it will eventually, if the models are correct, it's going to move over this water that's down around 24, 25 degrees Celsius, and then you'll probably start to see it stop. You certainly will see it stop strengthening, and I think the Hurricane Center may be correct that and some shear may cause it to weaken. By the way, notice the water where Jose is, which is right here, in the upper 60s. Very, very cool water here because of we've had upwelling going on for the last 2 weeks between the waves from Irma and the waves from Jose, and that has been almost continuous for a good chunk of the last 2 weeks. So all of this water has been cooled down considerably. I don't know how this thing actually is held on the way it has, sitting in water temperatures that are under 70. Part of it is probably because there's a little bit of non-tropicalness to it that we're seeing. But no matter, that is a big impediment with Maria going up the coast because it is going to have that cold pool that it's going to have to deal with. Now we'll switch over to the GFS now, and we'll take a look at. I'm going to get to the wider region. We'll go to the eastern U.S. because it'll all be in view before too long. There we go. And we're going to look at the new model run with this. That's out pretty far. So, come on. Respond, please. I'm trying to get this to go to the beginning. Why are you not working for me? All right. Okay, so that's Jose. And you can see Maria coming onto the scene. Jose disappears, so it gets absorbed. This is as opposed to Jose going westward and going inland into New Jersey, as some of the hurricane track models show. The GFS is doing something else. Now, it takes Maria actually northeast and then tries to hook it to the north. At this point, it's out almost along 70 west. It looks like it's actually a little further east than the prior run. So we can look at the upper air to see what's going on with that, and maybe we can get some clues. And it looks like, at least from the standpoint of the GFS, is that this upper ridge in the east doesn't build as strongly as prior as it was modeled earlier. We can look back 2 runs and see if that is the case. Well, I don't know. It doesn't look that much different. And if anything, there's a little bit more of a ridge that's kind of fingering here in Pennsylvania and New York State. So it could be that as that part of the ridge kind of builds up a little stronger, might be the reason why we're getting this northward push. So there's your ridge over the northeast. And it just kind of lifts up in there. You see how these gears are moving? Now we've got this upper trough that's coming down into Minnesota. You've got this trough that's off the camera, off the screen, that's back up into the southwest. So we're going to have to wait until we get a few more maps in, which will come up in a few minutes. So you know what? We'll just come back to this. And in the meantime, we'll go take a look at a few other things. There we go. So let me just get this, make it a little smaller. We can look at the hurricane track models for Jose. I hope everybody, by the way, had a very good Wednesday. This week just seems to be dragging with all of this stuff going on. Now, here are the hurricane track models for Jose, and just about all of them, except for one, loop this back and bring it back westward. Some of them just kind of weaken. Most of them are going to weaken and cause it to fall apart and dissipate. That's what most of the intensity models do, by the way. There are some of them that hold some sort of intact low and bring it back westward into southern New Jersey and into or the Delmarva Peninsula, or even down into lower Chesapeake Bay. But we're talking here about a remnant low. We're not talking about a full-fledged tropical storm here, just a remnant low that goes by to the west, and the upper feature that goes with it. Now, that might be important if it happens that way, because it may have an impact on Maria and what Maria does down the road. But we'll have to just wait and see. Whoops. Here we go. Now, the Maria track models are up here. So we'll bring those out. And they all are pretty tight. They're fairly clustered. You can see them here. They're pretty well clustered. North of the Dominican Republic, we've got some warnings up, by the way, for the northeastern part of the Dominican Republic, right in here. Even though Maria's offshore, they're in close enough where they're getting at least tropical storm conditions. And also for the Turks and Caicos Islands, we have hurricane warnings up there. You can see them pretty tightly clustered with a north and then a northeast course, kind of a gentle turn to the northeast. And then they all sort of wind up somewhere east of North Carolina and south of the eastern end of Long Island. Again, pretty much like where Jose was. So all the models seem to be doing the same thing. So I would tend to think that the confidence in the forecast should be on the high side. Here's the Hurricane Center's view. And move that to the top. And, it pretty much follows the cluster of guidance. By Monday evening, it's centered, about 600 miles or so east of Charleston, South Carolina. Bermuda is out here, so it's kind of halfway between the South Carolina coast and Bermuda on the Hurricane Center's official forecast. And they have it as a major hurricane for a little while, and then up until about 8 p.m. Saturday, and then they start to weaken it a bit. Because this is the point now when it gets up here that it starts to get into that colder water. Okay, so you know what? Let's look at the GFS again. See if we have out any more. The pattern is so complex. It's so unusual for us to have slow-moving systems like this because normally you've got a trough you're dealing with and a strong jet stream someplace. So when they get to our latitude, they like to move along. And all right, we got a couple of more frames, and it looks like it's moving it from here. It moves north and even northwestward. Now the question is, this upper trough that's dropping down into Minnesota and back over into the Dakotas, is it going to act as a kicker, or is this going to dig down and pull this up closer to the coast? I have to tell you, from the look of this, I would say that the odds would favor that it would be a kicker. But we'll leave that. We won't pass any judgment until we get a few more frames, so we can look at the European in the meantime. And this is the European from this afternoon. And I'll roll back from the beginning. Let me make this a little bit smaller so that you can see the whole map. And then, I'll be in the frame. So Jose's at the top. Maria's just kind of nosing its way into the bottom. And I can loop it so we can do it that way. You see how it makes that kind of pivot northwest and north and northeast? Watch what it does in the plains. Here comes that trough. Here's the ridge. Builds up. Maria comes up. Now here comes that trough swinging out. You see, and it kicks it out like a football almost. This is what I always describe about the gears changing all the time. That's what this is. It's like watching all these gears turning. And there's that trough, and it just kicks it out like a football. And by the way, this would be a threat for those of you in Nova Scotia and in Newfoundland. If this evolves this way, this would probably be something that you're going to have to deal with as it moves northeastward from off the Virginia coast, pretty much in line toward Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, maybe passing near or just barely to your south. So that might be something to think about in the long range if this is what works out. And if we, I'll put the surface. I'll put a surface view here. And these are the surface features on how it looks, so we'll loop it. We're starting, by the way, this goes back to Monday, so that's Jose here, okay? So I'll loop that for you. And you can see Jose, loops back, dissipates. Maria comes up to the coast, out it goes, and gets kicked out like a football. This would be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Well, that's Jose, I'm sorry, here's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, gone. Jose up, dissipates. Maria comes up, passes well east of North Carolina, hooks back to the northwest for a little while, and then gets kicked out to the northeast. So that upper trough that's going to be swinging out from Canada and the plains is either going to draw it back westward or it's going to act as a kicker and kick it away. We can look at the GFS's view. I don't know how much we have of this yet, but let's take a look. So we're starting with Jose. And there we go. It's weird, all the maps are trying to load, so I just have to be a little more patient. It's weird with this ridge position in the east because it's making these storms move backwards instead of out to sea. They're coming back toward the coast. And my eyes are just not used to seeing that. But here's Maria. We're now into Monday night. This is Tuesday, 2 p.m. Now we're into Wednesday, 8 a.m. And it starts to hook it back toward the northwest. So why don't we look at what the upper air looks like at this point. I hope you. I really hope you're liking all these upper air things because I think it's important. We look at the surface, of course, but we really should always you got to look at the upper air to see how things are moving to get a real flavor for what's happening. Do we have out far enough? No, that's as far as we go. So of course we're going to wait. And here it is. This is now Wednesday evening, and we haven't gotten any new ones yet. Do we have the next frame? Nope, not yet. Oh boy. So it's going to be a mystery. We may have to wait till tomorrow to find out. You know what? Why don't I talk? We'll come back to this. In the meantime, I will talk to you, and we'll wait to see what the models have to say. So let me just put the chat on. Got a nice crowd tonight. 100 of you are on. That's just great. Yeah, Corey, I hope it's a kicker too because I need a break, and I'm going to be fishing next week, and I don't want to have to be fishing and working at the same time. How and why is it kicking it out? Thought the storms go to it. Well, Karina, if you look at how that upper air works with the gears, that trough is far to the west, as in reference to Maria. So it's not timing out right. It's a matter of these troughs and the hurricanes timing. The timing is so important here. The trough is still too far to the west, according to what the model is saying, in order to pick it up and move it straight up northward. It tries for a while, but then it just kicks it away. So they have to time out almost perfectly to move up northward and northwestward. You're not really getting that southerly flow along the east coast to bring it straight up. At least that's the way it looks at the moment. Yes, and Lidl Griffith is correct. The trough would have to go negative. In other words, the trough on this that's coming out is oriented northeast southwest. That's called a positive tilt, and it's progressive. It moves along from west to east, so anything in front of it is going to be kicked along from west to east. A negative tilted trough is a trough that's tilted northwest to southeast. So in other words, if you draw a line in the V of the trough when it's negative, the line would go from, just as an example, Chicago to Savannah, okay, and the winds would bend in the V at an angle, and you would have southerly winds along the east coast, and that's what you would need. And Anthony Orr says on the 192 hour, the GFS, the hurricane, is kicked out. Yeah, and Anthony, I think that makes sense given what the upper air looks like. Timing and steering forces counter and clockwise, correct. Scott Olson, double thumbs up back to you, Wayne S. What category would it be at this point? David Fuller. I think, honestly, by the time it gets up here, it may just be a 2. I'm thinking that cool pool of upwelled water is going to do a number on it, and not have it be as strong as it otherwise could be. Hey, I'm losing my cellular service because it's still very weak here in Naples. Thank you again for saving my life. Oh my. Did you act AS? Did you evacuate during Irma? And I guess you must have sustained quite a bit of damage. I'm so sorry to hear that. I wish you well. I'm sure everybody here does too. Without Jose, I think we'd be talking about heat around here more. Oh, absolutely, Box 505. With this big ridge in the east, it's the clouds over the next few days in some areas that'll keep the temperatures down, and the northeast wind. Even though tomorrow might be very warm with a north wind and the air pretty dry, we might see some rather warm temperatures up this way. Irma was your first hurricane experience, Fort Myers Beach, and I'm strangely looking forward to more. Was a crazy this experience. Is that wrong? Well, look, I would just suggest that just don't put your life in danger, okay? You made the choice you made this time around may not necessarily be the right choice you make the next time. And I'll tell you what, I'll just give you an illustration. When I was talking with the head of the Hurricane Center, when he was up here when they brought the Hurricane Hunter planes back in May, he mentioned the fact that there were people that in Louisiana that survived Hurricane Katrina and died in Hurricane Ike a few years later because their mindset was, well, if I survived Katrina, I could survive anything, and Ike was a different type of storm. So I wouldn't necessarily make the same decision the next time because it might not come out the same way in terms of of what the storm does. Um, so just bear that in mind, okay? AS, thank you. You're very, very kind to say that. Thank you. Um, Awesome Gamer, yeah, watch it change. You know what's remarkable right now with these models is the fact that they're all pretty consistent and they're all very close. So, usually when that happens, things, I know we're still pretty far out in the future and things may change. That's the thing. I don't want to give an unequivocal answer here with regards to the fact that it might be kicked out it might not be kicked, that it will be kicked out because it might find a way not to. And, I got to keep the door open at this point, but because we're still a week away. Okay, there's another invest. I didn't notice that, but let me just see. If you go to tropicaltidbits.com, whose maps we use and are very grateful for, thank you, Levi Cowan. If you go to current storms on the menu, you will see all the systems that the Hurricane Center is looking at, and you'll also see systems that are around the world, which is a nice thing to have. By the way, on the latest recon, for some reason, and this could be because of what's going on with the eye, the pressure's at 961, but the motion has actually been more westerly in the last two recon center fixes. That could be there could be a number of reasons for that, including the fact that you've got the double eyes with the eye wall replacement cycle underway. So I just want to be a little careful with that. But there seems to be a bit of a jog to the west, and the Hurricane Center did acknowledge that did occur when Maria moved across Puerto Rico. So it may have come out a little further west than it certainly did come out further west than what some of the models were indicating. I see Lee, there's 14L, which really doesn't have much to it at all. And that's it. I don't see another invest here yet. So if you know that there is, if you could post it and give me the latitude, longitude that they're looking at, that would be great. Anthony Orr points out, and he says that Maria's strongest landfalling hurricane in Puerto Rico since 1928. And that's amazing. Okay, so then it must be Lee, then the 14L. And yeah, that's, even if that were to redevelop, who cares? It's way out in the Atlantic, middle of the Atlantic and not going anywhere. I live on Long Island. Could the hurricane hit here? Well, enemy of the state. Clever. Well, you know what? I'm here with you. So if one does come, I'll let you know. But we've had them. Unless you're new to here, you weren't here for Sandy. We do get them sometimes. And the 38 hurricane was up before Sandy was the one that stood in memory of most people. Jason Schaefer's still more than strong enough if it is a threat. Well, we'll see, Jason. The fact that these things are moving so slow is so when they're up at our latitude is pretty unusual, and that water is really cold. So I wonder how much you're going to be able to sustain. I mean, you certainly could sustain it to minimal hurricane status, strong tropical storm, minimal hurricane if it were to come straight up. But how fast would it be moving? 15 miles an hour? Look at Jose. I mean, it could barely make it to 10 miles an hour and was moving under that north of 35 north. So unless a stronger jet stream, a shortwave trough gets involved, where you can get a good push in the steering from the upper atmosphere, this thing's going to crawl up. and I don't know that that's going to be able to maintain something of considerable strength. Let's see. Jose is dying, Awesome Gamer, and dying a very slow, torturous death for us. Maria gaining strength, but where is it going? Well, Maria's organizing. It's getting better organized. I think it's gonna take another 24, maybe about 24 hours before you start to see it, pick up in intensity. Doug Crum, thank you so much for hitting Super Chat tonight. Appreciate it greatly. And when I wake up tomorrow morning, it's going to get me a cup of coffee. Thank you so much. Let's see how much of the GFS we got. Maybe we can finish up this run. And, whoops. That's not what I wanted to do. Yep, kicks it out, as Anthony says. And you see the trough is way to the west, so it doesn't time out right to bring this up the East Coast. Instead of bringing it up, it acts as a kicker and moves it out to the northeast. And goodbye. In fact, it moves it out pretty far to the south of Nova Scotia, so you got to wonder. It's actually kicking it out at a much lower latitude than prior runs. Maybe that's going to be the new trend with all this, with the jet stream finally lowering. That could be the case. Again, I want to be cautious. This could certainly change if this upper trough coming down into the Great Lakes is more intense. We could have more of a track to the left, and it might mean more of a threat to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. So again, at this point, we are just at the, we're still out at day 9. We're basically at day 8 in the long range. So we're pretty far out. And in what I've always called squirrel land. So there's still room for things to happen a little differently. Be curious to see what the European does with this. But here's the surface reflection of Maria. Northeast, north, little jog northwest, and then it gets kicked out to the east. So honestly, I really hope that this is the case. I want it to go away. I'm tired. I'm just exhausted. I've never seen it like this with all this time. This has been such an incredible period. We do have the Canadian, so, that's always good for some laughs along the way. So let's see what it comes up with, because it wanted to take it into Virginia. There's the Canadian losing Jose and kind of shoving it to the northeast. But look how far to the left the Canadian is versus the GFS. And then it takes that hook, and then do you see what happens? It gets up to about the latitude of North Carolina. And by the way, if this were right, I don't believe this rain that's up on the northern fringe of it. It just gets kicked almost straight east. And the reason for that is it's upper air. Nope. Wrong one. Oh, it just it overwhelms eastern Canada with that trough and cold air. That the jet stream on the Canadian really just overwhelms. You can see how it just drops down. Strong westerlies. That's why it just kicks it out to the east. So this is even more an argument that Maria is going to wind up going out to sea if that's right. And we're also going to finally get this ridge out of the way, and then going into the first week, the end of the week of the late next week, and going into next weekend, we'll get a pretty decent shot of cool air to come down, so we can get out of this late season heat and humidity, which I am not liking, by the way. So that pretty much sums up what we're going through here going forward. We've got the mystery that is Jose. As we watch that just kind of fall apart in the backyard of southern New England and the southern areas of the Northeast. We're going to watch Maria over the next couple of days gain some strength. I wonder if there's going to be at least a couple of model runs that are going to make you very nervous about a track up the coast. I think that's certainly a possibility that we'll see that. But right now, based on what I'm looking at, if you had to ask me to bet based on the information I have, I would say, I would bet with on the out to sea solution. All right, folks, let's call it a night. It's coming up on almost 12:40. I hope you had a great Wednesday. I hope you have an even better Thursday. Thank you, um, Doug Crum, for hitting the super chat. I really appreciate it very much. Thank you for all of you that have occasionally done so. You've been very kind and very generous, and the coffee or the cigars that I've been picking up with them really help me to relax. So. I will. I'm going to go up. I'm going to be fishing next week. I'm taking my stuff with me because I'm not going to be fishing all day and all night. So I will be live streaming from upstate New York, and we will. Hopefully, I will catch some salmon, and I'll maybe be able to show it to you. So keep your fingers crossed on that. I'm going fly fishing, which I've only done a few times, and it's a learning curve. So I have to kind of remember all the things I learned about fishing, about fly fishing, and hopefully it'll come back to me. I was very lucky on my second trip. I caught 2 salmon and a brown trout, and it was the thrill of my life fishing wise because these were big fish. And I catch and release, so they went right back in. And anyway, that's where I'll be. So I'll be monitoring Maria from there, and I'll be doing the regular live streams. Although I don't think I'm not going to be doing midnight ones because I'll be going to bed early. But I will be doing something probably in the evening. Okay, and thank you, magnetic perturbation. I know what you're referring to. I read that, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Will Awesome Gamer, will I track winter storms? Of course. Absolutely. That's snow is that I really enjoy doing very much. It's an even more intricate puzzle than hurricanes are. It's a kind of it's a totally different approach in a lot of ways. But absolutely, we'll be tracking winter storms all over the country. And by the way, you're always learning, and since where you live is important when you're forecasting. Your own climate. I'm not too familiar with the climate of other places around the country. Some places yes, some places no. But Corey Bodziak, you ought to know. If you've been following me long enough when it comes to wintertime and snow. So yeah, absolutely, we're going to have a blast doing that. So pretty soon, it won't be too long. We're almost into October. Before too long, we get into November. We'll start to see a few little things popping up here and there, and then we'll get into the winter time. And who knows what adventures we'll be taken on in December, January, February, and into March. What is the most interesting for forecasting? Tornado season, hurricane season, and winter storm season. I have to tell you. Severe weather is, for me, is not high up on my list for some reason. I don't find it as motivating as I would say winter weather is first for me, and hurricanes come right behind that. I like forecasting winter weather because there's so many different angles to it, and but hurricanes are right up there. Severe weather, not so much. I'm not big on it. Maybe because it's so localized. It's much more localized, whereas the other ones, are more widespread. And yeah, we're gonna have fun. And Awesome Gamer, I love the holidays with snow too. Nothing beats a white Christmas. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with snow on the ground. That's the best. That really is. Okay, I'm losing it. Time to go to bed. So everybody have a great night. Everybody go to sleep. Okay, and we'll see you tomorrow. I'll try to get a live stream done in the morning before I head out to work, and maybe another one tomorrow night as we keep watching Maria, Jose, the Trough in the West, pattern change in the long term, and a whole bunch of other things. But I sure hope that we are going to get a break, by the way, with some tropical storm development. After these last 4 weeks, the atmosphere needs to pause for a bit, and I hope it does. All right. Good night, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow.